We got PaperCut in August, right? And we're now in January 2026, so only a few months out. We are already decreasing our print output by 17%, saving money and helping us with sustainability. I don't see a line at the copier. I mean, I used to come in the morning, there was a line at the copier, which is a total waste of time. I think PaperCut has changed printing for our staff because they're much more thoughtful about what they have to print.
Now you can tell me who you are and where we are.
Sure. My name is Ryan Benjamin. I am the Senior Director of Operations, Finance, and Development at Sela Public Charter School, which is a pre-K 3 to 5th grade Hebrew immersion public charter school in the District of Columbia, so the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. I do finance, facilities, HR, technology, compliance, data, you name it. Basically anything that's not academic is under my department.
You're kind of like the shared services person in one.
Yeah, it's like the fractional, like everything's like fractional,
Yeah.
you know, but I do all the fractionals. So they add up to more than one. We were founded 14 years ago as a diverse by design school. Because you can live in DC, anywhere in DC and come here, and because we're a good school, we have some pretty awesome diversity numbers. So we're about 60% African American, 30% white, and then 10% like Hispanic and Asian. Which is pretty diverse for DC. This year we have 277 students. We've been as high as 302. So we're mid-size for DC. We are very proud of being a Blue Ribbon school. We were awarded a Blue Ribbon in 2022. So what is a Blue Ribbon? A Blue Ribbon is the highest award that the United States Department of Education bestows upon any school in the United States. And you can imagine there's tens of thousands of schools in the US and only a handful are selected as Blue Ribbons every year. We were chosen as a Blue Ribbon for our academic excellence. So we have two main copiers. They're Kyocera's. They both print black and white and color. And we have two smaller printers, which are not accessible to the vast majority of staff. I have been here for 5 years, and ever since I've been here, I have cringed at the number of copies that we make, specifically the number of color copies. And I have always been told, we are a dual language immersion, and so we need color in order to present the best possible product to our kids so they can learn. And it makes sense to me, but our numbers were just sort of, for the size of our school, in my opinion, the numbers were out of control in terms of how many sheets we were printing and what percent of those sheets were color sheets. And I'd heard about PaperCut. Our copier vendor is a reseller of PaperCut and was telling us about the product. And I was really trying to find a way to actually just track. So at first I just wanted to track who was printing what, because the way that printing used to work at Sela was that anyone could print anything they wanted in whatever they want, so color or black and white, and there was absolutely no way for me to know who printed what unless I stood at the machine and watched.
Yeah.
I would come in here and the librarian, Ms. Mo, and I, we would just scoff at how much paper was left here. Like people would print stuff and then they would never come get it. We're talking hundreds of sheets sometimes in a week. So anyway, I just wanted something to track. And I was told by a reseller that there are some complicated ways we could do it, or we can get this thing called PaperCut. The evaluation that I made at that time was that we didn't need it at that point. We kind of kept going on as we had. So we carried on with like people just printing however they wanted, whenever they wanted. And last spring was the first time I finally said, you know what, it's too much, like it's time to invest. And I think that the savings that we would have from having a product like PaperCut on our ink and our paper would justify the cost of PaperCut.
There was a tipping point there though. What was the point where you went, you know what? That's enough.
I think it was seeing so many papers just left here. And you can identify, like I was able to identify who was printing based on what it was. So for example, if it was a third grade math sheet printed in orange, I could tell it was from the third grade teacher. I would go to him and be like, what's going on here? And he's like, oh, I don't need that anymore. That was the tipping point. The culture was, we have to print. We're printing, but we're printing too much. and we need a product, we need something that's going to allow us, to track. Remember, my first priority was just tracking. And my idea was I would track, and then I would be able to have individual conversations with people. But PaperCut came into view, and it's like, well, it's not just tracking, they can actually control what's being printed, and I have visibility on that, and I have the ability to control what people are printing and give them a balance or an allowance, and go from there. I mean, it was a huge opportunity for us to save paper. I mean, the amount of sheets we print per day, if we can reduce that, we can reduce our footprint.
Yeah.
At that point, we were working with our reseller, and we also have an IT vendor. And our IT vendor knows the ins and outs of copiers and computers way more than I do. And so they recommended Hive because it was cloud-based.
Yeah.
We don't have the capacity, or we don't have the infrastructure to host ourselves. So it was a perfect product for us. So to get PaperCut installed on our machines, it was a partnership. It was a reseller who happens to be our copy vendor. So they obviously had to do a lot. Our IT services folks also had to connect to the network. And then there was another third party, I don't remember the company, that those folks hired to do the installation.
Mm-hmm. And over what period of time did this take place?
I would say 2 months.
Yeah.
And it was done during the summer, so there was no impact. So we ended the year in June. And once we ended the year in June, that was the last copy we made, and we transitioned over the summer to PaperCut, so there was no impact, during the year. I was very nervous about folks who were working over the summer because it didn't have an impact on the vast majority of our staff, but we did have folks working over the summer. We had summer camp. So at one point I decided, well, we're gonna wait until summer camp's over, because it was definitely, to turn on that figurative switch is a big deal. And yes, I was definitely nervous about it. The nice surprise was that there wasn't as much of an impact in terms of people being upset as I thought. We got PaperCut in August, right? And we're now in January 2026, so only a few months out. We are already decreasing our print output by 17%. I think someone might think that because PaperCut is a solution that could potentially curb printing, that it would be a nuisance to educators, but it's actually not. Let me give you an example. So before, a teacher here would have to print, let's say 20 copies, and come here, and that teacher didn't know if she was the only one printing or if there were 5 people ahead of her and she would have to wait in line. And I'm thinking back to when I was a teacher, I had to, we were rationed paper. So we were rationed 1 ream of paper, and we still had to wait. And then if there was a jam, a paper jam, that would obviously cause us to wait even further. And time is money, right? So now our teachers don't have to do that. So our teachers can print, and they can come, and we have it set, I believe, to 24 hours. So they can come within the next 24 hours and print at their convenience. They can walk by when they're going to the bathroom, see no one's at the machine, and then come in and print it, as opposed to, again, waiting in line. Because if you don't wait in line, you risk the fact that someone's going to take your copies by accident, or on purpose, not really, definitely by accident, or throw it out by accident or on purpose. There hasn't been a study in terms of time saved, but that's a great point and something we should probably do. But I can definitely say anecdotally, I don't see a line at the copier. I mean, I used to come in the morning, there was a line at the copier, which is a total waste of time. I used to see people getting frustrated when there was a paper jam. We don't have that anymore. So it's really changed, I think, the way that teachers can do it. And teachers can print from home. I mean, you saw the teacher here, she was printing, she was sitting on the beanbag, and she was printing. And she didn't have to worry about waiting in line. She didn't have to worry about, which copy. And another really cool thing is, which I forgot to mention, is that before you could only print to a specific copier. So we have 2 copiers in the building, so you would either have to print to the library copier or the staff lounge copier. And again, back to the original thing, you had no idea if there was a line at, which one there was a line at, if there was a line. So now you just print to the cloud and you go to whatever device you want and you pick it up. So if there is somebody here using it, you can go to the next one. Or if there's a jam here, or if there's something going on in here and you can't use it, you can go to that one. And you don't have to worry about the print job being wasted because it won't print. Can I talk about scans for a second?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, let's talk about scanning. What's your experience there?
Okay. One of my favorite parts about PaperCut is the scanning. So I do a lot of scanning. I get papers, contracts, whatever I have to scan and sign and scan them. So it's kind of a lot. I get statements from the bank, like whatever. I have to scan it. And so years ago with the copiers, it was actually easier. You would just like scan it and your name would be in the address book. But recently the copiers have made it, I think from a security perspective, you have to click like 7 buttons to ensure that you are the person you are sending the scan to, because we have all sent a scan to the wrong person. Yeah. So they were smart and they made all these, but it's really annoying. Yeah. So PaperCut got rid of that, because now once you log in, it knows it's you.
Yeah.
And it immediately will say scan to email, and I just press 1 button. So it's actually changed the game for me, because what I would do previously is I would save all of the scans and then come like once a week and do the scan. Like it was that annoying. So now I don't have to do that. We also added card readers, which was a big hit for me because it saved even more time and frustration. And it saved time around people putting in their code or like forgetting their code or something like that. So they don't have to do that anymore. If they have the card, which also allows them to get into the building, it's the same card. So they get into the building, they come here, they had to find where to put the card, but they put the card, it comes up, and it's great.
Yeah, super easy.
Yeah, I think PaperCut has changed printing for our staff because they're much more thoughtful about what they have to print. I think before they would print whatever they wanted in color, sometimes in black and white, single side, whatever. They weren't thinking about sustainability, they weren't thinking about cost. But now that they have a balance, they have to think about sustainability and they have to think about cost. And they can still do the amazing job for their kids that they were doing before without printing eons of paper. I think the biggest benefit that PaperCut has brought to our school is saving money and helping us with sustainability. Like, we have really changed the game on how we think about printing. We don't just print to print. We don't print copies that we end up throwing in the trash, because we have to be conservative around what we're printing. We have to be thoughtful. So I think it's really changed how we think about what is necessary to print for our kids, like what they absolutely need, versus what we can just print willy-nilly, whenever we want. I'm able to see who is printing the most, and I never knew. And if I go back to years ago when I started here, what I really wanted to know was who was printing. Not necessarily coming up with a solution to like curb people's printing. It was really just to see. And then from there, it's like data informs instruction, as we say this all the time in education. Data would inform how I approach the issue, but the solution kind of takes care of that in many ways. Mm-hmm. I still know who my top printers are, but now they have a cap. So they are definitely curbing their own printing, at least in color.
What would you say to a peer in another school who's got a out of control print environment?
I would say that if you are really worried about how much you're printing and how much it's costing you, you have to check out PaperCut, because it's a great solution. It helps you track who's printing, it helps you cap what you're printing. You're able to create your own system around balances and quotas and reminders and scanning and all of these things that really changes the game on how your teachers will think about printing. I would say printing was very disorganized previously, and it was very hard to track. And now printing is very organized and it's very trackable.